Welcome to Discussing Dad Life, where we break down bullshit so you don't have to. I'm Void, this is No, and let's go.
Welcome. This is going to be Main Event Mondays. As you can see, Void is not here. He had some things he needed to take care of around his house and just wasn't going to be joining. So I will be doing 2 videos solo, and then he's going to be recording one with his son and uploading that one. So Main Event Monday, the big announcement that came out on Friday is Trump. His appeal up at the Supreme Court, finally, Supreme Court went ahead and granted that they're going to go ahead and listen to the questions presented to him. So there's a bunch of articles that have been written about it. Obviously, there's some biased things. So, like the Atlantic, let's just go with the Atlantic real quick. Donald Trump is well on his way to becoming history's greatest litigation loser ever, but the multi-front war on Trump versus seemingly everyone else has just prevailed in one of the small skirmish, the battle of the questions presented, right? So you can just tell how biased they are. They're not actually even wanting to talk about the merits. I read the article. It's trash. So we're going to jump over to the New York Times, which actually, surprisingly enough, actually has a decently well-articulated view on both sides, which is interesting. The New York Times is kind of not necessarily always the most accurate, but this one says basically how the Supreme Court may rule on Trump's presidential run. The legal questions are novel and tangled, experts said, and the justices may be wary of knocking a leading presidential candidate off the ballot. The Supreme Court, battled by ethics scandals, a dip in public confidence, and question about its legitimacy, may soon have to confront a case as consequential and bruising as Bush versus Gore, the 2000 decision that handed the presidency to George W. Bush. Now, it's interesting that they frame it that there's a dip in public confidence. There's always a dip in public confidence when they don't have activist judges just handing them the decisions they want. They like to steamroll decisions through. So it's not a dip in public confidence across all Americans. It's just about from the leftists that actually have a dip in their confidence. And that's just because they don't care. They don't respect the constitutional republic that we live in. They want a bully majority. Is basically what they want to do. Is they want 51% to say, hey, you know what? All your stuff is now my stuff. Or, so it's kind of sad how they view things. It continues until 10 days ago. The justice had settled in a relatively routine term. Then the Colorado Supreme Court declared that the former President Donald J. Trump was ineligible to hold office because he had engaged in insurrection on Thursday, relying on the court's reasoning. An election official in Maine followed suit. So that is actually pretty accurate of what Colorado did do. The sad part is those justices in the Colorado Supreme Court are activist judges and would love to see Donald Trump not be on the ballot. So they didn't follow the law. They didn't actually read the Constitution. They just went ahead and made up their minds on something that was not true. The simple fact that ineligible to hold office because he engaged in insurrection. Donald Trump's never been charged with insurrection. He's never been tried or convicted. So this decision actually holds no merit. But we'll see what they do. An appeal of the Colorado ruling has already reached the justices, and they will probably feel compelled to weigh in. But they will act in the shadow of 2 competing political realities. Actually, there's only one reality, and there's 2 political factions that are trying to control the narrative of that reality. So we'll correct their New York Times on that one. They will be reluctant to wrest from voters the power to assess Mr. Trump's conduct, particularly given the certain backlash that would bring. Yet they would also be wary of giving Mr. Trump the electoral boost of an unqualified victory in the nation's highest court. Actually, that's one thing that they won't do, is be concerned with how it's going to play out politically. That's not part of their mandate on how to do it. They have to weigh the law and how you interpret the law and what the Constitution says. So that is them hoping that they can plant the nugget of the narrative that if they do say Trump is actually allowed on the ballot, then people will think that the Supreme Court is biased against the left, basically, which is what they're continuing to do. I mean, they said it earlier in the article where they said that the public confidence, right? So, yeah, it continues on. Nonetheless, the main points are Donald Trump and the Republican Party in Colorado have successfully got themselves in front of the Supreme Court. They heard arguments on it on Friday. They decided they would. They got written briefs and they decided that they would actually entertain oral arguments. Now, how that's actually going to play out, could be a very short time, which, excuse me, which I imagine it's actually going to be relatively fast just because the primary season is upon us. And Iowa, if I'm not mistaken, their primaries next week. Yeah, the 10th, I think, 10th or 11th. So yeah, that's crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Supreme Court ends up saying on all this. I was actually very shocked that they even decided that they were going to hear oral arguments after the disaster in 2020 when they didn't even pick up Texas' complaint against Pennsylvania, and you had pretty much every single state filing in support on one side or the other. And then they just said, nope, we're not going to touch it at all, which is absolutely nuts that they wouldn't get involved in sorting this mess out then, but now they're going to step in, and it's honestly going to be, no matter what we do in 2024, we are in for a world of hurt. The left's never going to accept that people want Donald Trump. The people who support Donald Trump and want America to be great are never going to accept anything that the left does to try barring them from achieving this. I mean, Biden's volunteers for his campaign have been walking out en masse. We have unprecedented level of legal immigration coming across the border. We have the worst case of fentanyl deaths going on in the country, across the country. I mean, we are in political turmoil, and we as a country, the people of this country, have abdicated our responsibility of making sure that we have proper representatives. And, we're in a world of hurt. That's all I can say. So that's the big news that happened this week, last week. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and give my predictions. So this is going to be Noel's predictions for the 2024 presidential election. When Void's back, we're going to have Void do it, what he says, and then we're going to have a little mini debate, I think, between ourselves as to why we're picking, if our maps are different. So why don't you go ahead and bring that up and switch over to the screen share? Can you make sure on OBS, please? Yep, we're good. Go back. Okay, perfect. All right, so this is 270towin.com. This is an interactive electoral college map. This is going to be for 2024. You can see that highlighted right up there. So this comes pre-filled out with historically accurate data, right? So Washington typically is a strong Democrat state, and I shouldn't say it's a strong Democrat state. It has a few very urban centers that have a population that exceeds the rest of the state. So the rest of the state actually has to bend their knee and kiss the ring of the heathens that live in Seattle and everywhere else, because those people don't care about what actually goes on in the eastern parts of the state. Same with Oregon. That's the same there. California, it's the same thing. I mean, if you get rid of San Francisco, you get rid of LA, you get rid of the big urban centers that are just ridiculous, and you actually go out into to the countryside, you actually have strong Republican views. And the funny thing is, most of these people, when you say strong Republican, strong Democrat, most of these people aren't actually a strong Democrat. It's just a lot of their personal beliefs align more with one party or another. That's not to say Democrats are bad. That's not to say Republicans are bad. They each have their faults. And in this day and age, in 2024, my personal thought is, if you're a Republican, I view you as much more accepting of other viewpoints and others' people. And if you're a Democrat, you are misogynistic, you're misandric, you are racist. I mean, if you look at it, I have known more people on the quote unquote left that is supposedly the party of inclusion that is very exclusive on who they will actually support. So it's kind of nuts. Personally, I would prefer everyone to kind of be a little bit more moderate, right there in the middle, because both sides, like I said, have great ideas. And both sides also have some really dumb ideas. It just so happens that the dumb ideas are more prevalent on the left right now than they are on the right, which is unfortunate because that means that people think that the Republicans are always right. So, whatever. And then, so Washington, Oregon, California, those are going to go blue. Those will stay blue. Biden will win those unless, Biden drops out, then whoever the Democrat. I mean, at this point, I think you could nominate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the Democrats, and they would still win these states. They don't care about who's actually their candidate is. They don't care about the background. Joe Biden's a prime example. The dude's racist. So, I mean, horrible guy, corrupt individual, taking money from China, Ukraine, doing everything he can, selling the American tax dollars down the drain. Okay, so then you have Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia that are solidly Republican, right? Colorado is going to be solid Democrat, and then you go into the Northeast, and that's pretty much solid Democrat as well, which is interesting. It is actually really interesting, considering the fact that New York, the only reason that is a solidly blue state is because of New York City. Other than that, the state would probably actually go lean red. Excuse me. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to leave where they're at because that actually looks right. Maine. So Maine and Nebraska are interesting. So the numbers underneath, guys, like the MT and how it has 4. That's just Montana, and then Montana has 4 electoral college. California has 54 electoral colleges things. So the way that the presidential election works, if you don't know this, I'm going to break it down just quite simply, is each state runs. The Constitution tells the state legislators that you will run your elections how you see fit, basically. So the legislative branches in each of the states comes up and sets forth the ground rules for the federal elections. And what that ends up happening is the states are all broken down into counties or parishes or, depending on where you're at, they're called different things, but they're basically subsections of the state. Each of those areas will have voting booths or, voting locations. So you'll go and you'll vote, and then they'll tabulate everything in this one area. And then whoever has the majority vote in that area, they'll win that county. And then the counties report that up to the states, and however many counties went for the Republican, it goes for the Republican. If it goes for the Democrat, it goes for the Democrat. In rare situations where we have in the U.S., we don't have very strong third parties, which is insane. Libertarian parties should be a little bit higher up. Granted, libertarians have their own problems that they have to get over. But anyway, theoretically, you could actually end up with a state going third party. I don't think that's happened. I don't recall ever seeing that happening. But yeah, nonetheless, so the electoral colleges then, or the state then says, okay, the state's voting for Donald Trump, or the state's voting for Biden, and then the number of electoral college number that they have gets sent up. So that's where the 54 plus the 8 plus the 12. That's where you see the strong 191. You have mildly strong 30, and then you have, or likely 30, and then you have the leans at 5. Then you have 77 toss-ups, 57 lean to the right, 57 are likely to the right, and the 121 for sure to the right. And all that is just based on the historical data, right? So we know that some of these states are historically voting one way or another. In New England, or not New England, I'm sorry, in Maine and Nebraska, you actually have different sets. So you have, sorry, you have little subsets that can actually get voted one way or another, and that's just how those states are set up. So, yeah, let's go through this. California, I think, is going to go blue. That's strong. Oregon's strong. Washington strong. Idaho is strong, which I think is dumb because Idaho is a little bit behind the times when it comes. Most of the time, I think about most Republicans are behind the times. Montana strong. Wyoming strong. Utah is strong. Nevada is going to lean slightly right. Yep, leans right. Arizona is likely blue. Yep, that one. Texas leans to the right, which is nuts. It used to be where Texas was a likely right more so than a leans, but that's neither here nor there. That's a lot of imports from California and other blue states that were fleeing the COVID restrictions. They came to California, and unknowingly, they will continue to vote for the policies that basically force them out of their home states, which is nuts that they're going to do that. Oklahoma is strong. Kansas is strong. Nebraska is going to be strong. And that is right that there is one that is going to lean blue or lean Democrat. So we'll leave that alone. South Dakota, North Dakota, both leaning or strong Republican. Minnesota is going to be the interesting one. I don't think that's actually a likely Democrat anymore. It's going to lean to the right this year. That's my personal prediction. I have no idea if I'm going to be right or wrong on that one. Wisconsin's going to lean to the right. Michigan is going to lean blue. Iowa is likely Republican. That's right. Missouri strong. Arkansas strong. Louisiana, LA. My bad. Is strong. Mississippi and Alabama are correct. Those are going to be strong. Tennessee strong. Kentucky strong. Illinois is a strong blue. You can thank Chicago for that one. That's a mess in and of itself. Indiana is strong red. Ohio is likely going to be red. I agree there. West Virginia strong red. Virginia, we'll leave it. North Carolina will lean to the right. Yeah. South Carolina for sure red. Georgia, this one's going to be interesting. I am actually going to be putting that one under leans blue. And the main reason why is because of the voting laws and everything, all the confusion that has yet to be straightened out. Same with Arizona. That's why I'm putting that as likely Democrat, is because their voting is completely jacked up. I mean, they proved that voting places in Arizona were actually printing out ballots on the wrong paper, which was causing them not to scan, creating essentially what boils down to be voter fraud. And courts did nothing about it. Katie Hobbs is still sitting as governor. Completely nuts that the people that we trust to make sure that we have a free and fair election can actually go ahead and violate people's trust like that, and there's no ramifications. Completely nuts. Pennsylvania is the next one that we got to make decisions on. Now, this is going to decide the election right here. And I am hesitant to give it even to the leans Republican, but I am going to put it leans Republican. And that will give Donald Trump the victory in 2024, right there. I am scared that the issues that I pointed out in Arizona and Georgia are also plaguing Pennsylvania. However, I think the people, the hardworking people, the iron workers of Pennsylvania are going to come out in droves to make sure that the election that they was such under controversy in 2020 does not happen again. That's the reason I'm going to go leans Republican on that one. Granted, the ground game for the Democrats have always been the same. I mean, they did whatever they could to make sure that they have laws to make sure that they can do universal mail-in voting and no voter ID requirements. I mean, they're doing everything. And one of the dumbest arguments I hate when it comes to having a valid ID to vote is they said, well, it's racist if you do that. And to me, that is the most racist thing you can say, is you're saying that people that aren't white don't have the intelligence and don't have the forethought in how to actually manage their day-to-day lives. To me, that is the most racist argument I've ever heard in my life. It's absolutely insane. And you know, I think it's just absolutely nuts that people would actually continue to support people that treat people as second class, that they're not worthy. Completely nuts. Maine, I am going to change that one where it's like leans red. I am actually going to change that over to leans blue, and I'm going to finish the map with that. Perfect. And the reason I do that is I don't think he's going to win that one, but it doesn't change the outcome. This is my thought process is Democrats will end up with 259. Republicans will end up with 279. Nevada, we can even lose Nevada in this situation, which is a possibility again because Nevada was plagued by polling places issues. I do believe Nevada got that fixed, though, and we should be not having nearly as many contested. The other reason I think that Pennsylvania is actually going to lean to the Republicans this time is because there is, I can't remember where I saw it, but there was an article or some post that was actually talking about the initiative by some of the Republican members in Pennsylvania, not Republican Party members, not Congress or anything like that, where they were actually going to be encouraging more poll watching to prevent some of the things. Like one of the stories that came out of Pennsylvania, and I have no idea if this ended up being debunked or not, I've never heard any final outcome on it, was that they were actually shipping in ballots from other counties in order to count them in the county to make sure it would go for a Democrat. I have no idea if that actually ended up being the case. Nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. 2020 is behind us. We need to look forward to 2024. Everyone always likes to say that this election is the most important election of our time. They were trying to say that in 2020. They said that in 2016. They said it in 2012, and 2008, 2004, 2000. Just going back, it's always the most important. Always the most important. The thing with 2024 is this: we have a fractured society. We have a fractured cultural society. We have people that believe that the United States of America's flag is a symbol of racism, that they are ashamed to be Americans. And when we get to the point where a large portion, they're still a minority, but a large enough portion has these feelings that America needs to fall, basically, we've entered a really bad time. Democrats have done a disastrous job, but they've always done a disastrous job. They're in bed with the deep states. They're in bed with the large globalist corporations. They don't care about the American people. Republicans, I'm not going to give you guys any credits either. You guys are in the same boat. The difference between Republicans and Democrats is this: the Freedom Caucus, which actually is a halfway decent mounting of people, actually care about the American people. And they just so happen to align themselves with the Republicans and are able to force the Republicans in some situations. McCarthy was a prime example. Getting McCarthy out of the Speaker of the House was the Freedom Caucus movement. And they were able to force that, even though there's only I think 8 or 9 of them. So don't think that I'm sitting here saying Republicans are the end all be all. No, I mean, Nikki Haley's a prime example. She's the leading second place contender for the Republican nomination, and look at her. She is all about killing and murdering kids overseas, all about getting that money to Boeing and all these war profiting companies, So Republicans, you guys are just as much trash. Don't sit here and think that I want it. The difference is the Democrats are driving at a wall at 300 miles an hour. The Republicans are only doing 200. I'm sorry to say it. If we're going to be driving at a wall, I'd rather be going 200 than 300 because that way at least I have some time, hopefully, to frickin' fix something. So I'll leave it there. That's my prediction. I'll I'll get a screenshot of this so that way when Boyd gets done doing his predictions, we can compare and see what and let him walk through it, and we might end up having a lively debate. I'm sure he's going to disagree with me on some of this stuff, which is great because he has different political views than I do in some cases. So it is what it is. Oh, we forgot about Alaska and Hawaii. I'm sorry. They're sitting down there on the map. We're going to leave those alone. Hawaii, I was going to be a Democrat state. Alaska, you guys are rough tumbled, and that typically means you're going to be likely going to the Republicans. Plus, there's no major cities in Alaska. I mean, what is the population of Juneau? Do you know? I think Anchorage or Juneau. Anchorage, 291,000. Yeah, Juneau's 32.4. And the reason I said Juneau first was, if I remember right, Juneau's the cap. Wait, now I'm confusing myself. Yeah, Juneau is the capital. I was right. Anchorage is the largest with 291, which is by big cities, that's very small. So, and one thing that as I continue getting older and I continue looking at the way voters vote is when you are in larger cities or when you have major cities like New York City or LA, San Francisco, those cities tend to go Democrat. And which tends to force the state to go Democrat. But if people were left alone and spread out, then they typically have a little bit more freedom-loving aspects on it where they don't want to infringe on other people because they don't want other people to infringe on them. I'm not sure why. Well, actually, I have a theory as to why large cities tend to go Democrat, and I think that's because people are stacked on top of each other, and they have to rely on the government to handle disputes more so than, if you live on 2 acres and your closest neighbor's, like a 4 or 5 minute walk down the road, you're less likely to, one, have disturbances or issues between each other, and 2, you're more likely to be able to actually talk and kind of handle it yourself. So those are just my thoughts. I'm not saying that's correct in any way, shape, or form. I do know that Democrats, the way I view Democrats and Republicans these day and age is Democrats want to steal from you. Republicans want to steal a little less from you. And libertarians, man, for as many problems as you guys have, I do love the fact that y'all want to hey, everyone just leave each other alone and let you do your own thing, So everyone's kind of got their positives and negatives. So is what it is. My recommendation is don't vote for the party, vote for the candidate. The candidate means a lot more. Idaho, we have, in my district, our representative is Mike Simpson, and he's trash. We have, Governor Little? Yeah, Little. He's trash. Bundy would have been a much better candidate, but or politician for us, but is what it is. You gotta get to know the people that are running in your area, and then look into them and make the decision based on that. Don't make the decision based on emotion. Make it based on what they have in line with you. And keep in mind that not everyone's going to have everything in line with you. Donald Trump, the reason he'll get the nomination from the Republicans, I think, and he'll more than likely get my vote. But at the same time, I mean. I live in Idaho, so it doesn't really matter. I can actually vote. I don't have to vote to actually make sure. Like if I lived in Nevada, I'm sure I'd have to vote for him. But living in Idaho, completely different. I don't have to vote for him. I could actually vote third party, which I might do. I did it last time, and that's just because I already know the state's going to go to Trump, so it doesn't really matter. And I would rather vote my conscience at that point. And while I think Trump has done some good things, I also think he's a boorish, typical New Yorker who just is brash, short, and rude. I think he has a lot of personality problems, but I also thought he did some great things for the country. So, you got to take the good with the bad. And right now, I think the things that he did good, no new wars under Trump was huge. That was something that's very, very positive for me. He had the historical black colleges funding at record levels. That was huge, I thought. Then he was also taking on some of the deep state issues, which was great. The deep state issues, basically, after 9/11, we wanted to make sure that we were protecting ourselves. Makes sense, right? We got attacked in a very horrendous way. Unfortunately, as new information continues coming out on the 9/11 attacks, we can see that the government lied to us. George Bush Jr., absolutely horrible president. I honestly don't trust anything that came out of that man's mouth. Weapons of mass destruction, complete lie. But the deep state, the intelligence apparatus got funding, and after they took care of what their funding was, their original mandate was for, they basically had to take a look to inwards and turn all the apparatus that was used to hunt down this one man and start using it against the American people. That's why you have the DOJ right now under Biden that says the parents going to student board meetings are the number one issue of domestic terrorists in the United States. Or that's why you have Trump voters as being a high risk domestic terrorist practice, however they word it. But it's just nuts that they have turned this apparatus inwards and are targeting their political opponents, the people that don't agree with them. There's lots of evidence for it. And I really wish that people would start waking up. And it has looked like that people have started waking up to the pitfalls that the Democratic Party actually offers. I mean, they have gone too far bonkers, and a lot of people that were just leaning Democrats have actually been left behind. That's the other thing and that's the other thing that I get really upset with Republicans for is like the Bud Light thing. Bud Light did the partnership with what's that? Day of a Girl guy, whatever his name is, where they partnered with him, and his audience is like teenagers, or not teenagers, like prepubescent kids, basically, and is basically trying to push alcohol on them. People got upset, rightly so, and boycotted Bud Light, dropped their business down by like 30%. But then Bud Light goes and partners with UFC, and people are still like, "Oh no, we got to continue boycotting." I'm like, "Why? You won. You won. They have given money to a guy that openly goes on Twitter and saying, "Hey, this is my thoughts are paid for now by Bud Light," and he's sitting there trash talking all this gender fluid crap that everyone's trying to push around. So it's like, why won't you take the win? Take the W. That's why the Republican Party grew as much as it has, is because you guys were the home of the disenfranchised, those that were left behind that no longer agreed. The other thing that's really interesting is the fracturization between the Democrats and the far left, which was brought on by the Hamas Israel issue going on, right? So there's some states that honestly I'm not comfortable enough to say that it would change, but there's some states up in the Northeast that might actually end up swapping to go to a Republican, to go to Donald Trump. And the reasoning why is because of Joe Biden's innate ability to actually make a firm stand on anything dealing with Israel. So it's nuts. We live in a crazy time. All I know is 2024 is going to be crazy. And just make sure you're prepared as best you can be, and make sure that you're talking with your kids and making sure that they understand what's going on, and making sure you're doing everything to keep them safe. Till then, I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe. Till then, peace.